welcome in back to the live stream the professor, Jason Jones, culture writer over at The Athletic. Jay, what's good? You think Memphis can get tonight's game?
Yeah, hold up a second. I had I go back live and my screen went away from y'all, but can you see me still?
I got you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's just my computer. Blame my job for that.
That's all right. We'll blame The Athletic. Come on, Athletic. Let's step it up.
See y'all, but y'all can see me. We good.
Yeah, you look golden.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm almighty today.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy right there. Almighty.
Yeah, we back now. See, we back.
Yeah.
You think Memphis can get tonight's game?
I think so. I mean, they've played the Warriors well during the season. I mean, game the other day was a tight game. I think they can. I mean, it's just, I mean, they were a good Klay Thompson defensive switch away from of being there. And that was just smart play by Klay. He realized that Brandon Clark does not want to shoot that ball. He's giving that rock up every time for that. I mean, if that's Jaren Jackson, maybe it's a different situation. But, I think they can get one. I mean, I don't think the Warriors are going to sweep them. But, but if they don't get tonight, that's going to change for me. But
they might get swept and they don't get tonight.
They don't get tonight. This could be one of those, cancel Christmas type series.
Time to cancel Christmas. The Draymond Green ejection. In the moment, I wasn't like, oh, he's going to get thrown out for this. I thought it would be a flagrant run. But, I mean, people talk about, oh, he lessened the fall and he tried to hold him. That was a pretty crazy play. Like that seems like it fits the description of a flagrant too. Now it's up to their discretion to actually act on that, and you can do something different. But that action fit the description of what a flagrant is.
When I saw the replay, I said he's getting tossed. When I saw the jersey pulled down, I said he's getting tossed. I mean, I understand the definition of the rule, and people say, well, that's not fair. And what about? I mean, the way I understood the rule, I said he got him in the face. That was going to be one flagrant one. Each separate the two separate things would have been one flagrant one. You put them together, they were going to toss him.
Yeah.
I mean, so I wasn't surprised. I mean, I was surprised because they actually called it. Because I was like, I'm saying to myself when I'm watching, I'm going, by the letter of the law, he gets a flagrant too. I mean, if you don't like the rule, that's different. Should the officials have more leeway? But probably. But by the letter of the rule, that's a flagrant too. And does the rule suck? You could say, yeah, it sucks. But I'm not going to jump into the whole. It was a conspiracy to get no, man. He grabbed the man by his jersey and yanked it. It was a dangerous play.
If there's a conspiracy against the Warriors, they're throwing out Steph Curry. They're not throwing out Draymond Green.
You forget where I live. You forget I live in Vallejo, where everyone in the Bay Area swears the NBA is out to get the Warriors, which I'm like, what NBA do you watch? You mean the NBA that lets them set illegal screens literally every dang game? I mean, I don't know if Draymond Green is a power forward or a right guard sometime on those games. And you guys want to complain the NBA is out to get you? I mean, Draymond kicked the guy in the groin about how many times before he finally got in trouble in 2016? Like, the league was like, Draymond, please don't make us suspend you. Please don't make us suspend you. Poor Steven Adams was just taking L's.
Kicked in the Kiwis, mate.
But hey, that's the world we live in, where everything's a conspiracy. Every time your team loses, it's got to be a higher power somewhere. I was like, that conspiracy makes no sense, because I thought the NBA would conspire for the bigger market team. Why would the NBA conspire to help Memphis?
Right.
I mean, I find it all hilarious, especially when you get two small market teams both hollering conspiracy. Like, okay, yeah, two teams that by definition no one should care about. The league's trying to pull strings. No, because if the league could really pull strings, we'd have Brooklyn still around.
The Knicks would never have been this bad for the Knicks.
Yeah. There's no way the NBA is going, let's have the Knicks suck for the better part of 2 decades.
And they probably wouldn't want.
Let's have the Lakers be a sideshow joke. Yeah, no one. There's no way the league is happy about that.
They would have figured out a way to make Michael Jordan's teams good. They would have figured out a way. Like, look, man, Mike, don't do that trade. No, that's not the draft.
Frank Kaminsky, Mike. Don't draft Frank Kaminsky.
That guy, Mike.
Don't draft Adam Morrison, Mike. Don't do that. Mike. But Mike has a thing for the white wing player.
No, that's his bag.
The white guy who plays the 3 or the 4. Mike likes bringing those guys in.
Yeah.
Gordon Hayward. I mean, he likes him. Cody Zeller.
Zeller.
Where is Cody Zeller?
Is he still? He's not. No, he was in Portland. I think he was in Portland.
That's another Zeller, I think.
Oh man,
Zellers and Plumlees, man, can't keep track of all of them across the league.
Between the Zellers and the Plumlees, they've got like 40 of them.
They got a.
I think they got a Zeller and a Plumlee. Come to think about it, they surely got one of each.
All they needed the Njai to complete the college family, trio.
We're in a holiday.
Infinity stones of random college players who were in college.
Get a holiday over there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But remember, Njai, there was like an Njai on a team in the Final Four for like 15 years, it felt like. Like, there was an Mamadou Njai with the Fab Five.
Yeah.
And like one playing like 12 years later for North Carolina.
Like, forgotten member of the Fab Five.
He played with Weber, then played with like Rasheed Wallace, and then like with, Joe Forte. He just kept transferring, maximizing those,
And see, that's a whole family affair. Perry Ellis was just there from Danny Manning all the way to Mario Thomas. He was just there the whole time.
He's just like, I'm gonna play for Roy Williams, Bill Self. I'm gonna be around for this.
That's the professor, Jason Jones of The Athletic. Let's shift to the Kings here a little bit. Joe Dumars is out. He's taking a position with the NBA, Kiki Vandeweghe's old position. What is? I don't know. How would you summarize Joe Dumars' time in Sacramento?
I don't know how to summarize it. It's the weirdest thing. He was like the latest in line of former players that Vivek liked having around. And it's almost like you don't want to be the GM. You want to be the former player that Vivek has around. Whether it was Chris Mullin, and then it became Vlade, and then it became Joe. And I think maybe Joe's biggest thing was he helped get Vlade out. It was that that talk with talking to Vivek after the bubble, and all of a sudden after getting an extension, Vlade is gone. But then you get to this next phase during the Monty McNair era. It's kind of like, well, what exactly does Joe? Joe has influence, but Joe's not the ultimate decision maker. And everything I had been told was that Joe didn't want to be Monty, but he wanted to be the man above Monty. He wanted to have oversight, but he didn't want to do the day-to-day things. So that's the reason why he had that. The Kings are great at coming up with these random titles. Chief strategy officer. It's like, okay, what is this? Like the military? Like, what are we doing? But yeah, I mean, just in terms of, I don't want to say impact, because it's kind of hard to say what his impact was, but I think the biggest thing was, that's post-bubble. That's the guy Vivek was talking to. Then all of a sudden, Vlade, a little more than a year into an extension, is gone. So, but yeah, it's I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if Joe was running everything. Like clearly, like this is Joe's show when I'm hiring my guy. Because when Vlade was let go, that was the idea. For what I had been told was that it was going to be Joe, running everything, and he was going to hire a guy to be the GM. But I don't think he would say Monty comes from the Joe Dumars tree, so to speak.
Right.
And so there's people I know who would have worked with Joe who thought they had a chance to get brought on at some point. And they would tell me later on that, well, Joe's not going to be the guy like that. So that's the reason why it's not going that direction. Yeah. So, yeah, it's weird, too, that you would, he would leave right in the middle of a coaching search, but that kind of, to me,
right.
That just tells me that it's really the Monty and Vivek show, that he would leave literally like, okay, we're interviewing guys this week. Okay, I start my next job on the 9th. Bye, guys.
That is a little trippy. The role that Joe Dumars had, and I think we've talked about this before, was his role something that was common around the league as a person that has the ear of an owner or something like that, or was his a little more unique than? And when I think about that, I think about like a Jerry West. So was it a little bit more unique than just that?
I think it leans more to like a Jerry West type. It's just that I think with the Kings, it was never always clear. Because remember, he was like an advisor. And like, well, what does that mean? And if you're Vlade at that point, it's like the advisor to Vivek is a former NBA executive of the year. And I'm getting torched for not drafting Luka. That couldn't have felt good if you were Vlade. Also, given the fact that Vlade got his job while Pete D'Alessandro was still in the office. So really, I guess, it's not unique that you have people that the ownership will listen to, get advice from. What makes the Kings thing a little different is that it's always seemed like that person has more influence than the person who's supposed to be making decisions.
Right.
Like Pete D'Alessandro was the GM, but who had the ownership's ear? Chris Mullin. And then when that went awry, Chris leaves, Pete's gone. And before Pete leaves, like I said, Vlade shows up. And then Vlade doesn't have a real actual role. And then you talk to people, they're like, oh, Vlade's just here trying to learn. You talk to Vlade, he's like, I'm here to run stuff. You're like, okay, well, someone needs to tell Pete what's going on. So it's just, and then while Vlade's there, Joe shows up with a vague title. But then he, to me, it's just, that's no way to run things. Because, I mean, how can you ever feel comfortable? Like, if I'm Monty, I'm hoping Vivek does not bring in doesn't have a new former player show up. I don't know who else is out there, you hope you don't see like Brad Miller hanging out in the front office all of a sudden.
He's been around quite a bit lately. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Brad comes to games. Brad has, if all of a sudden there's a release and Brad has a general like title, Brad Miller, advisor to Monty might go ahead and pack his bags. Like, you know what? We know what this is. Brad Miller, GM in a year.
We're down to 3 coaching finalists here. How many Kings coaching searches? I know you don't cover the team the way that you used to, but this has got to be 10.
Let me see. When I got there, when I started, the coach was Kenny Nat. So I had the Westfall one.
Man.
I had Westfall, Keith Smart. After that, Malone. Then we had the famous 3 coaches in like 3 before the All-Star break with Malone, Corbin, and Carl. Then I had Yeager. Then I had Luke. Yeah,
Congratulations.
A lot. I know. I mean, the cool thing is because there's so many staffs have come through, I know coaches everywhere. Every game I watch, I know him. Like, and even guys who weren't coaches, like Ime Udoka, who I'm still surprised never got a real interview with Sack at some point. But that's neither here nor there. But you just know a lot of people when you cover a bad team because they cycle through people all the time. Yeah. So with this one, it's like, okay, you're down to 3. If you read the social media tea leaves, no one likes anyone. No matter who they hire, it's going to be a disaster to people. I'm just going to sit back and watch for my own entertainment. Like I said, I don't have any rooting interest. For my own entertainment and laughter on Twitter, I hope they hire Mark Jackson. Because
that's the story.
Because Damien's head is going to explode and everyone else's. And I just want to sit back with the popcorn and be like, this is hilarious. I'll go to the presser for that just to see the questions. Because I can't imagine, but part of me thinks thinks Mike Brown makes sense, given the whole Warrior connection, but so does Mark. And to me, it's almost crazy that it's taken this long for Mark to be a candidate in Sacramento. I think that part of that was the whole that he wasn't popular with the Warriors, and maybe that had some influence. But, I mean, if you're going to be a contrarian, the fact that Mark is a finalist might mean that maybe, the Kings aren't just trying to listen and mimic the Warriors. But I don't know. I mean, I was surprised they didn't go and, get a younger kind of, younger guy in the mix. But I think they probably figure you've been bad this long. You need someone who's coached before. And all these guys have had history with establishing a defensive culture, which is what the Kings haven't had since, I don't know what, since Keon Clark was on the team and Ron Artest. They don't have a defensive identity. So in that regard, they make sense. Like, I mean, to me, in a lot of ways, all of them make sense. In a lot of ways, Mark makes sense. Mike Brown makes sense. And so does Steve Clifford. So like I said, I figured no matter who they hire, no one's going to be happy because no one trusts this group to make the right decision.
Yeah, that's the truth of the matter until they actually pull off something successful on the basketball court, at least. This is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, the press conference is going to be interesting just because I can see no matter who they hire, no one's going, it's weird saying that no one in the media will be happy, because I'm like, part of our job isn't to necessarily be happy over who got hired. But I don't know I just don't think that the finalists are like sexy or exciting, which means that probably Steve Clifford might end up getting the job, who's probably the least exciting of the three, mainly because people probably know the least about him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been solid where he's been. He got that Charlotte team to the playoffs before, which of course we saw with the last coach they had in Charlotte, that got you fired for not advancing far enough with with Bismack Biyombo starting. Hey, I don't know what they wanted to do, but
it's weird that, like, we look at Steve Clifford in that Charlotte group, and even Orlando to a certain degree also, and look at like, oh, look what he was able to do there. But with Mike Brown, we almost look down on Mike. Oh, he coached LeBron James. He didn't do anything. Dude won 61 games, won 60. He was fired after winning 60 plus games. He's been a coach of the year. He succeeded with that Lakers team. He was fired 5 games into the next year. Didn't get an opportunity to see that through. Foolishly went back to Cleveland for 1 year, got paid for the next 4. But we diminish him as a coach because he coached LeBron James, which is wild to me.
Yeah, and that happens with everyone who coaches LeBron. Tyronn Lue got diminished, to the point where the Lakers stupidly didn't hire him because it was, well, we gotta match your contract to LeBron, like he was LeBron's babysitter and he wasn't a great coach. So they, it just happens. If you coach, Spoelstra dealt with that where you didn't win it. Anyone who coaches LeBron wasn't a good coach. But I'm like, so does LeBron get any blame when those teams lose? Like, does LeBron get any blame for this Lakers season? Since or that all Frank Vogel? Was he now an idiot too? So I think Mike Brown deserves a chance. I mean, the criticism was his offenses weren't creative enough and things of that sort. But I think if you're around the Warriors as long as he has been lately, you pick up some things. And I think guys like can learn and get better. And I don't know why people act like hiring Mike Brown is hiring me. Like, oh no, we can't touch Mike Brown. I think Mike Brown definitely deserves another shot, and I imagine he'll get one. I think all 3 of the Kings finalists probably deserve a shot somewhere. I don't think I think Mark's stuff has a lot more to do with people don't like Mark. People forget that last year with the Warriors, they won 50 games.
Yeah.
And people say, well, they didn't advance out, they didn't know that they took the next step without Mark. I would also argue that team wasn't ready for the next step that year. I mean, those guys were still pretty young, and they did 150 for the first time that year. It wasn't like they had it wasn't like a Dale Harris Laker group in the 90s that kept running into failure. That group was still pretty young. So I think if Mark has learned some lessons from that time, he could work. I think Steve Clifford could. I think there's a way to see how all of them work, especially because of the emphasis on defense. But like I said, no one's going to be happy. I think whoever Charlotte hires, people will be like, oh, see, that's the guy the Kings should have got. Like all of a sudden everyone's a Darvin Ham expert. So I don't know what you do with it. I mean, I think the skepticism is legitimate and deserved. I mean, when you've gone through 7 coaches in less than 10 years, people should be side-eyeing your decision-making.
Do you know if Mark Jackson interviewed here before?
I don't think he ever actually interviewed. Remember when Malone got fired? The game was on TV. He was calling the game, like a game, like 2 games after that or something. And he was like walking around, and everyone just assumed that Malone was fired. So, Mark was, something's gonna be going on with Mark eventually. It was some weird overlap. Maybe not that year. It was that year because that was the 14-15 season where they won the title. Yeah, so Mark was here, and then we just were all waiting for Mark to interview, and then they went out and got George Karl. So I mean, I don't think I think his name has come up before. I know it came up during the Jaeger process when Vlade was interviewing literally everyone. But
Oh, Mark. Someone got Jason's internet stream. They shot you down for a minute. You're back. That's all right.
Okay.
Mark Jackson, like they know you're talking about him, and Mark sent the Lord to shut down your internet stream.
Mark's been praying against me. If I speak evil of him, he's going to smite me down with great vengeance. Let me stop. Before I get some angry Christian message.
Yeah. I almost got him again, but he's back. He's back though. He repented just in time. Just in time. We're having fun. I think it's going to be Mark Jackson. Just a feeling of mine. Who do you think is the Kings' job?
I think it's going to be Mark or Mike Brown. I think it's going to be one of the guys with Warrior ties. I mean, that's one thing consistent in the coaching hires that have been since Vivek took over. That I think who didn't have a Warrior tie? Yeager?
Yeager's the only one. I feel like
maybe Corbin. But there's always been a war. I just think it's in. There's always been a Warrior tie at some point. Luke had been with because I think there's that comfort and familiarity from his perspective because
hell, even George Karl was with the Warriors.
Yeah, George was. Yeah. So they and if you keep on going back, the last time the Kings had success, a former Warriors coach, Rick Adelman. So maybe they're going to keep on pulling that Warriors.
People keep talking about Vivek trying to be like the Warriors. People keep talking about Vivek trying to be like the Warriors. Nah. He going back further than what y'all think about. He thinking on another level. Rick Adelman. Yeah,
he overstands this process, and we understand it. He said, y'all just think I'm copying the Warriors. No, it's way deeper than that. This is,
let's go over your head.
Yeah, y'all don't even see that. Yeah, he said, y'all missed the whole George Karl Warriors connection. Y'all forgot about that. He's like, I didn't.
Yo, who sent the Kings to the playoffs? Gary St. Jean.
Yeah,
Warriors.
Another Warrior. See,
get Greg St. Jean back out here, dang it. Get Greg St. Jean back out here. Get Gary's son back out here. Why not? Warriors North.
Yeah.
Keep on trying to, Harrison Barnes is already, in place. Let's see, can you find some other former Warriors? Maybe they can trade for Kevon Looney. I don't know. Eventually it's going to work. Eventually you get enough former Warriors where you start winning games.
Juan Toscano, Kings power forward.
Oh Lord.
Max contract coming up. Full max contract. The Kings want to give Jordan Poole that max money.
I'd give Jordan Poole the back here.
They're ready.
Come on now.
They're ready. They're not those Damian Lee. Who else is left? Gary Payton II. Somebody.
I'd take Gary Payton II on the Kings.
Yeah, I'm not saying you would. I'm just kind of go through their roster. Who can they get? They can't get Draymond, unfortunately, for you, Kenny. They don't get Draymond.
Draymond will retire before he leaves the world.
He'll become a full-time podcaster.
That's very true. He's already got a job at TNT. What are we even talking about? He's got one of the biggest broadcasting jobs you can have.
Vibes. That's what it's going to be called.
They'll get Clay not when they should have drafted. They'll get Clay like after his contract runs up and he's about to, he just wants to play another year. They're like, okay, we're going to sign Clay to a minimum deal. He's just like a veteran leader and can't play like he did 10 years earlier.
He's going to be the awkward Patrick Ewing in a Sonics uniform photo. It's going to be Clay Thompson in a
Raptors jersey.
Yeah, it's not going to be good.
It's going to be. See, I collect random jerseys like that. Like I would rock the Clay Thompson Kings jersey because no one would remember that. Like I have the Iverson Grizzlies jersey.
Oh.
Because no one, if I told like a kid right now that Allen Iverson was a Memphis Grizzly, they would not believe you. But we covered one of his games. It was in Sacramento, where he basically said, "I'm not coming off the bench on this team." And then the Kings played in Memphis right after that. All his stuff was on clearance. They had already cut him.
That was I'm not even capping here. I think that was opening night.
I want to say it was opening night.
It was opening night. He came off the bench. He said, "I'm not doing this no more."
That was the game where Kevin Martin broke his hand or something, or was risked the same game. Yeah, that's a name from the past, Kevin Martin. Yeah, maybe he'll hang out with Vec. He'll be your new GM pretty soon.
What do you think of the Vivek versus Monty reports that are already managed to make their way onto the internet.
It's not a
Vivek
shock.
wants Mark, and apparently Monty and his team want Mike Brown.
It's not surprising. I mean, I think it's still time you could figure something out, you know. But at the end of the day, he's still the man who, he's still, it's still his show. So if he decides he wants Mark, he's going to get Mark.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he got Dave Yeager. You know, once Dave Yeager became available, he said, "I want Dave Yeager." You know, so, and I think until outside of the personality stuff, the clashes, I thought Dave was, on the court seemed to be working out. You know, but they just, Dave didn't work well with others essentially in Sacramento, and Dave had some valid points as to why he didn't agree with some decisions. And Dave would do things to kind of irk them, like play all 5 of the 7-footers at the same time, to show us all that he had way too many bigs. Put Harry Giles at point guard and like Scal of BCA at shooting guard.
Oh, Scal.
As those lineups were called back in the day, kind of amongst scouts and everyone, they were called the FU lineups. Whenever Dave wanted to remind you, this roster stinks, let me put all these players you think are good on the court.
Can't lie though. I admire that level of pettiness.
Yeah.
It was solid level of petty.
It was beautiful to be around because it was hilarious because you knew what he was doing. You knew exactly what he was doing. And then me and him. I won't say me and Dave clashed, but he would be short with me sometime. I'd be like, "What did I ever do?" And then you talk to him later. Then you kind of get a kind of idea where he's coming from. And that last year, Dave. Well, it was funny. Some people in Memphis told me how the arc of Dave Yeager was going to work. He'd be real petty with you from the start, and you'd feel like he hated you for 2 years. And then when it comes time for a new deal or something, he becomes your friend. That's kind of how it happened with Dave. And someone told me when they said, "Trust me, you're going to hate him for the first year. Like you're going to hate him. He's going to drive you crazy. He's never going to answer anything, all this stuff." And that was true. But then part of it was you learn as you're kind of around and talk to people. Dave was being short because he didn't want to make the team sound good because he was afraid if he made the players sound too good, then Vivek would expect him to win right away and he'd get fired. Because if you notice, whenever he spoke about De'Aaron, he always said year 4, year 5. He never said De'Aaron's going to be great next year. He was always trying to push it out, and push it out. He was about, having so many young guys who don't know their way in the league and don't know their roles, and at least the selfish. It was all true stuff. But Dave just didn't have the filter where he was going to BS behind closed doors, and it just didn't work well. So that's what makes the idea of someone who's outspoken like Mark Jackson intriguing to me. I'm like, how are they going to respond if Mark is like, "I don't like this team"? No, I mean it's all going to be interesting to watch.
The other thing about Mark, because I've said a number of different times, I think I'd be fine with Mark or Mike Brown. Not really crazy about Steve Clifford, but I really don't care. I just want the team to win. But if I had to choose Mike Brown or Mark Jones, Mike Brown or Mark Jackson.
Mark Jones could do it too.
Let's get Mark Jones up there too. Why not?
But the thing that you keeps resonating with me when I talk about Mark Jackson is all the former players kind of doing the opposite of what we just heard from Yeager, as far as instilling confidence in these guys, telling anybody who will listen, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is the greatest backcourt. They will be the greatest backcourt of all time, or the greatest shooting backcourt, or whatever. And I wonder if De'Aaron Fox, after all that he's been through in a short time, would really benefit from a guy like Mark Jackson, who may come in here, if he believes it, or, if he wants to instill that confidence and be like, "You know what, De'Aaron, Jason, we talk about all the time." You go to De'Aaron and be like, "You can do everything John Morant's doing." Like, I believe you can do all that. And do you think Jackson is a guy that could help Fox get to that point and get to that understanding of reaching his potential?
I think he would definitely challenge him. And I think at this stage of the game, that's what he needs to be challenged. And I think if not the other coaches didn't challenge, maybe he needs a different voice challenging him. I mean, I know it wasn't like Alvin or Luke or anyone else that said, "Do what you want," but there was always kind of a feeling amongst the coaches that De'Aaron kind of plays when he feels like it. Like he'll just coast and decide, okay, oh, Malik's playing on the other team. Let me go hard because, my boy Malik is on the other team, or, oh, Bam is in town. Let me, really go because I'm going against my buddy Bam. And their challenge was always that, why can't you act like Bam is on every team? Why can't you why can't you defend every guard the way you defend Goran Dragic? Why do you go at Goran like that, but then let random guard come in here and have a night against you? So I mean, I don't know if Mark or anyone can really do that. To me, that's more on De'Aaron than it is Mark or any coach. It's not like with De'Aaron going into like year 6.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, it's on him.
Parent can't hold your hand to school anymore. Like, let's go.
Mean,
come do it.
I think under the last 2-3, under Yeager, Walton, and Gentry, De'Aaron's had the free reign to be himself. It's not like, I don't think he would say, I know there was an article where he talked to Logan Murdoch about how he preferred to play in the half court. I was like, what? Like, are you serious? Like, what coach would put you in the half? There's not a coach who's been in Sacramento who would tell you that they would prefer De'Aaron in the half court. Like, why would you when he can get downhill against anybody? Like, why would you be like, let's slow it down with De'Aaron?
Right.
And every coach has been here has said, we'll be as good as De'Aaron's going to be. I talked to John Calipari about for a story. He said, the Kings will be as good as De'Aaron is. He said, if De'Aaron does the things that he needs to do on the court in terms of being a leader, that will determine if the Kings take the next step. So, I mean, I think it's all on him in that regard. I don't think any coach can change that. And if he kind of has that, if we're talking, if at this point next year we're talking about when De'Aaron turns it on, you may have to accept this is who he is.
Yeah.
And for some folks, they're there already. I mean, people who have been around the team, people around the league have all kind of said, hey, there's certain attributes you see from day one. And, you saw from day one with Ja was a killer.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a flash of it. He was going to be a killer every night. We've seen flashes of it with De'Aaron, but it hasn't been consistent. So maybe that's just who he is. Maybe he's a guy who's a really good player, but he's not going to be that superstar. So if that's the case, you've got to acknowledge that and figure out what you can do to either put people with him or at some point move on, So that's, and I think one thing about De'Aaron, he's done better when there's been someone there to push him. Mm-hmm. He had that big year a couple of years ago. It was no coincidence that he started playing better when everyone started saying, wow, this Tyrese Halliburton kid is something. Man, he's such a leader. He's doing this. And all of a sudden, De'Aaron's like, I better get it together because this kid's coming behind me. I don't know if Davion can do that to him, but there's got to be, like I've said before on this show, there's a problem where you got to keep drafting guys to light a fire under your max player. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have to keep drafting guys, and this goes back before Tyrese and Davion. That's why Vlade wanted Patrick Beverly. He wanted Patrick because he wanted like a firecracker, like guy behind De'Aaron to say, you know what? The reason why we want you to play defense so aggressively because we, if you need a break, we've got a guy who will do the same thing defensively. Right. So they've been trying to ignite that under him for 5 years. And yeah, I don't know.
That's the professor.
Maybe
Jason
Mark
Jones
can light that fire. So hey, we'll see.
Mark Jones or Mark Jackson, either one.
Mark Jones, Mark Jackson, and Marky Mark. I don't know.
Anybody at this point. We appreciate you, Jay. Thanks as always, my man.
All right, take it easy, y'all.